Welcome back to the Empowerment Zone. Our next guest is Vicky Oliver. She is the award winning author of three books on career development, including the best selling 301 Smart Answers to Tough Interview Questions, which came out a couple of years ago, and Bad Bosses, Crazy Coworkers, and Other Office Idiots. And she won the National Best Book Awards for Best Business Career Books in 2009. She was also an International Book Awards finalist in the business category in 2010. She's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, Chicago Tribune, and more, and gives seminars on job hunting, networking, and business etiquette. Vicky, welcome to the Empowerment Zone.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, I know that you've got a piece that you've written on the springtime workplace. You're offering about 9 spring cleaning tips for your career. And while that was fascinating, what I really invited you into the zone today to talk about is the 301 smart answers to tough business etiquette questions.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, I have seen such bad behavior that it's just it drives me almost to distraction. And I realize that we've kind of gotten away, and I think you address this in your book when you talk about people were trying to treat etiquette as something fancy that they just put on. I think you talked about like
Right.
you don a gold watch. So,
Exactly.
your book was so I could almost not put it down. I mean, it was so packed with information. But if you don't mind, for today, I'd like to talk about the chapter that you address, social media.
Right.
If it,
So, basically the problem is that we're all so addicted to technology.
mhm,
And I'm on the computer all day long, literally, like all night long and all day long. And everybody else is too.
right.
And it's sort of addictive. And we're sitting there on our mobile devices screening out real people. And it really comes into play, let's say you go into a meeting and you just can't resist, like checking your text messages,
Yes,
during it, right? Because let's face it, meetings can be boring, right? And texting is always fun.
exactly.
But the problem is we get so distracted by it that we're really not mentally present
Hmm.
for the people that we're in front of. And that's where I call it like inadvertent rudeness. Like you don't mean to be rude. You're just checking your text messages.
Right, right, right.
It's no offense, right? But, you want to know what your dinner plans are, right? But the problem is, it's sort of, you're screening out what's actually happening in front of your very eyes
Hmm.
for something that's on screen.
I noticed that particularly around the so-called Gen Xers, the millennials, they are never without some sort of smartphone or, handheld tablet, and they're constantly uh, using, their fingers are all flying around the keyboard or on the touch screen, and they almost disconnect with what's going on. So I can appreciate that.
Right. I mean, you just don't want to sort of unplug like that when you are in a public setting. Like if you're in a meeting at work, you don't really want to do it. And the next question is probably like, well, what if your boss does it? Okay, or whatever. But the thing is, that's okay. Like your boss can do whatever your boss does, and that's fine. But I think it would help people position themselves better if they seem to be present whenever they're in a meeting. And, mostly what you want to do is convince your superiors that you will make a great ambassador for the company.
Okay.
And that means being able to talk to people like clients in a polished way. And usually that entails not hiding behind a screen.
Now, a lot of our listeners are, and our readers definitely are, entrepreneurs. And the thing about it is, when you're talking about virtual meetings and starting out, I think it's chapter 9, when you talk about social networking,
Right.
and some of the things, some people have really had challenges with Facebook. Other people are trying to figure out, they're getting involved with LinkedIn and all of these other things. And you specifically talk about the benefits of Facebook, but some of the drawbacks and how you really need to use it efficiently efficiently in terms of the proper way with etiquette.
Right.
Could you talk about
Right.
that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I'm on all social media. I'm not, a Luddite or anything, including Twitter. And for me, what I try to do is I try to position each social media is just a tool, in my opinion,
Hmm.
to a potential in-person meeting with somebody. So whenever I'm on social media, I just try to make sure that my profile is professional, that when I post, it's about professional things. When I'm in a bad mood, I don't get on it at all. And I feel like that. I think with Facebook in particular, the danger is sharing too much, like too much information.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people believe in posting about medical things. I actually don't believe in that. I think it's too much information,
Hmm.
like to go out there and to say, "Oh, I had a mole chopped off today," or whatever it is. Um, and so, always remember that even if you are posting about a particular person, let's say, and you're not Facebook friends with that person, somebody else in your network may be,
Hmm.
so the information can get back to that person. You just have to be super careful. It sounds, I know, very corporate, but the truth is, you can hurt yourself through what you say, and usually it's about saying too much.
I've seen that where people will overshare.
Right.
And I love how you talk about the fact that people like to, like on LinkedIn or even with Facebook, they want to have a lot of connections. But you make the point that that might make you feel like, the big fish in the pond, but that also means you're trading your privacy.
Right. You are. You are. It's very, very tricky. I mean, the way I resolve it is that, I mean, personally, people that I'm friends with on Facebook, I really know them. I know them. They're my actual friends.
Hmm.
So, like, I'm not remiss to say no. I will not take you as my Facebook friend.
Right.
LinkedIn for me, it's like everybody I've ever met once. But I've met them.
Okay. Okay. I
I've
got you.
met them at a cocktail party or a networking event or something.
Right.
I've met them. And then Twitter, I mean, the way I look at it, I'm an author. I have 5 books out. I'm trying to get my word out there.
Hmm.
And so for me, I look at that as there's an opportunity to bring in new people that I've never met before and try to build, a following with people that really don't know me. So I'm okay with the fact that on Twitter, like, I don't know any of the people who are following me on Twitter, and that's fine. I'm always professional, on what I post about, and I think that everybody should just sort of try to have a strategy for the different things. Like, for me, I don't need to have like the same people on all 3 things following me.
Hmm. Exactly. So you can have unique followers if it were, as
Exactly,
it
and
were.
you can customize your message. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business, you can customize when you know basically who's out there following you.
Well, it was interesting to me that I had read the book, and a major university has come out with a study that talks about, specifically with Twitter, that the way to really build your following is to not talk about yourself as much as you talk about information or your product or your company. And I found that that was just empirical data that backs up what you were talking about in the book under
Right,
the good
exactly.
etiquette. It's like, talk about the company. Don't sit there and say, as you put it, I just went and had a mole chopped off.
Right.
Give
I
people
mean,
something they want to know.
exactly. I mean, for Twitter, I'm finding that if you follow people who are like you, who are doing what you're doing,
Hmm.
they generally follow you back, and it helps to build a following. But, bear in mind that if you are truly following people who are like you have even more of a privacy issue.
Correct.
You don't want, like, secrets about your company or anything like that getting out there on Twitter.
Now, there's something that you had talked about on blogging. Is one of the ways you said that people could get the word out, and you were
Right.
actually making the point that it's not just a young person's vehicle for communication.
Right. I mean, I feel like if everything is a strategy. And I've been going to a couple of seminars about this and everything. And really, what I believe is that you should do a couple of things well.
Mm-hmm.
I think too often we feel like we have to do it all, the whole package. We have to be on every social media doing this, and we need a blog, and we need to be on Instagram and everything. Really, like I would say, pick something that you enjoy doing and do it. So if you're a writer and if you love to write, and you can sort of be a self-motivated writer and think strategically about what you want to write about and then create schedules for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then you should be a blogger. That's a fantastic way to develop a following today,
Right.
And I'm not really like that, and so therefore I don't have a blog, but pick whatever you're great at and do it.
Well, I think I remember when you were talking in that chapter, you were also saying that sometimes the decision to blog or even getting involved in other aspects of social media can be likened to New Year's resolutions for dieting.
Right.
That you start out well intentioned and then it kind of falls by the wayside. But the fact of the matter is, once you, as you said, once you put something out there, it's out there. So be committed to it or don't start it.
Right. I mean, just don't. I would say, if you want to start a blog, I think the most important thing is to really have a schedule, and I would just do a one-sentence topic line for yourself
Mm-hmm.
of the topics that you're going to cover for the whole year, and when they're going to go on your blog.
That would be under your content strategy.
Yeah, I would say you must have a content strategy, or your blog will not, there'll be like one person reading it, your mom, So that's what you have to do. I mean, Twitter, I love Twitter because it's only 140 characters.
Exactly.
It's like you can wake up in the morning and write a great tweet and you're done. And I love that. It takes a minute
Right.
to tweet something. So I'm a big believer in that. But, whatever it is, just make sure you're doing it well.
Okay. Okay. Before we leave, I do want to touch on one other aspect in the book that actually followed the social networking part, and that is when you talk about the lost art of good phone manners.
Yes.
And that is something that is so very true.
Right.
What made you decide to put that to address that in the book?
Well, for one thing, we just aren't getting enough practice on the telephone,
Mm-hmm.
so we're not very good at it. I say collectively, all of us, we're just not getting the practice that we used to get. And everything is a text world, and we're just texting, which is
Right.
basically, shortcuts for communication,
Mm-hmm.
is how you text. And it's a disaster. But the truth is, if you are good at phone manners, if you're polite, if you're articulate, if you can reach out to people with a smile on the
Mm-hmm.
phone,
Right.
you're 5 steps ahead, And if you can do that in person, I'd say you're 10 steps ahead, because these are becoming lost arts, and those who excel at them will succeed.
Vicky, can you please tell our listeners how they can get a copy of this book? And listeners, believe me, this is a book that needs to be not only on your shelf, you need to read it and apply a lot of these techniques. You will find that it really is going to give you an edge in business or whatever part where you are in your career. Vicky, how can we get a copy of the book?
Okay, Amazon. It's called 301 Smart Answers to Tough Business Etiquette Questions.
Mm-hmm.
And my name is Vicky Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
You can go on Amazon, and also you can go on my website to find out more information as well. And that's VickyOliver.com, and it's VICKY.
Thank you, Vicky.